Welcome back, everybody, to the Philadelphia Eagles franchise here on Madden 22. Today we had the 2025 NFL Draft. The draft videos are always some of my favorite to produce each year, but they do take a lot of time and effort, so I don't normally ask for likes at the beginning of a video, but make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new. I would greatly appreciate it. Before we kick off the video, I have some pretty good news. I was finally able to upload the draft classes into the Madden file share, so if you search up my PSN, you can use any of the draft classes that we have used throughout this series. Draft Class 4 is obviously this year's draft class. These are the guys who are going to be drafted today. Draft Class 3 is last year's class. You can use guys like Edmund Orient, JT DeMarco, and all the other players who were scattered around the league. Draft Class 2 is maybe the most talented draft class so far at this series. You can use guys like Jabari Achabe, hopefully in your franchise. He doesn't get injured as much, along with Tazwell Hubbard, amongst others. And then the very first draft class is also available on the file share. You can use guys like Malachi Madison, Xander Vanderwald, Nehemiah Richardson, Tykeem Keon, CJ Thomas. So if you're on PS5 and you do want to use those draft classes, they are all now finally available. I apologize I wasn't able to get them up earlier, but Madden's files were not working pretty much all year. So as we enter the draft, I think we're in a good spot. Our roster doesn't have any major glaring holes per se, so I think we can really focus on just trying to get the best football players available. We're definitely focused on adding players who can contribute right away because I think we're very close to being a Super Bowl level team. We had the 30th overall pick in the first round with other picks scattered throughout. As you guys know, I always like to dance around the board. I very rarely stay, at least in the first round, with my projected pick. Usually I like to move up or move down, so don't be surprised if we do that again today. So now that all the chatter and anticipation is done with, let's kick off the 2025 NFL Draft with the Atlanta Falcons on the clock. We've been mocking them cornerback Bryson Barraclough out of Kentucky, who's definitely the best player in this draft class. As we take a look at Atlanta's roster, it's not very good, although they did make it better in free agency, adding guys like Dalvin Cook and Jalen Waddle. But cornerback is really the one position they don't need. They have three legitimately good starters with A.J. Terrell, Justin Graves, and Greedy Williams. So I feel like picking a corner here might not be the best idea when they have plenty of other holes, and there are going to be teams lining up at the opportunity to get a guy like Bryson Barraclough. So this pick is on the move. The Seattle Seahawks own the 3rd overall pick. They do not have a good cornerback room. They don't have anybody above a 78 overall. Seattle's a team who has always prioritized adding talent in the secondary, so I think they would really want a guy like Bryson Barraclough. So the Seahawks will be moving up from pick 3 to pick 1. We've never really seen a trade like this in real life, so I kind of had a hard time figuring out what fair value would be. So I ended up giving Atlanta the 3rd pick, obviously, along with Seattle's next 2 third-rounders. I think that's pretty fair because Atlanta still gets to pick in the top 3. They add 2 additional mid-round selections, and there you go. The Seahawks end up picking Bryson Barraclough, number 1 overall. Great selection for them. He comes in as an 81 overall, the highest-rated player in the draft class. 6'2", 20 years old. He can cover. He's athletic. He has good ball skills. He fits the complete package. This is an A-plus pick for the Seahawks. The Raiders at 2 is one of the most interesting picks in the whole draft because I think they should pick Orlando Higgins Jr. They really need wide receiver, but they could go defense. They've really focused on improving the pass rush throughout this series. They could also go quarterback. They've been mocked to select Drake Nelson, the QB out of Alabama, and that's what they end up doing. So Drake Nelson is the pick at number 2 overall. He's a 75 overall, not counting the huge bump in morale. He's a really talented player, strong arm, super explosive. The Raiders did draft a quarterback in the first round last year in Callum Jupiter. Do they not see him as their future anymore? I guess clearly not. Callum Jupiter's probably now headed towards the trade block. This is very similar to the Josh Rosen situation where he never really got a fair shot, was replaced after 1 year and eventually traded. I think Jupiter is going to be better than Josh Rosen though, but other than that, their situations are pretty similar. That brings up the Atlanta Falcons at 3. They go with Orlando Higgins Jr., the wide receiver out of Indiana. So in this offseason, the Falcons have added to their offense Dalvin Cook, Jalen Waddle, Kadarius Toney, and Orlando Higgins Jr., and they still have Calvin Ridley. There are no excuses for quarterback Loco Nwosu. He has to take a leap here as a second-year player. That brings up the New York Jets at 4. They're going to go on the defensive side of a ball with pass rusher Zaire Savage out of Ohio State. This felt like a very easy pick to pencil in. With those top 3 going off the board, Yaha was clearly the best player available. He fits a need. Pretty easy. The New Orleans Saints at 5 could be a quarterback destination. They've really tried to address the quarterback position throughout this series, and I think they finally have here with Crawford Shawcross out of Wisconsin. He's going to be great right off the bat with a 99 awareness rating. He's a very smart player who doesn't make mistakes. He's not someone with really good upside. He only has normal development, but he's going to be great right away. So I assume Braylon DeBose-Dur, who only has 1 year left on his deal, is pretty much out in New Orleans. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get anything for him or just wait until his contract is up. The Dolphins get pass rusher Kamari Hunter out of Oklahoma State. We didn't really talk about Hunter too much in depth, but he's a solid pick here at number 6 overall to the Dolphins, a team who could use some more guys going after the quarterback. So I think this is a pretty solid pick here for Miami. That'll bring up their division rival, the Buffalo Bills, here at 7, and they pick the first Westlake player off the board. It's cornerback Darshan Brooks Jr. His ratings are a lot worse than I remember. 64 man coverage, 75 zone, 63 catching, but he is quite athletic, and he does have a lot of upside. He showed a ton of flashes in college, but needs to be a little bit more consistent. The LA Rams here at pick 8 go with Blake Wilson, the offensive tackle out of Westlake. So back-to-back Westlake Hornets off the board here in the latter half of the top 10. The Rams are getting more bodies to protect their franchise quarterback, Nico Cabanera, who had a solid rookie season last year as the number 1 overall draft pick. So now that brings us to the Giants at 9, but not for long. This pick is on the move, headed to the Arizona Cardinals. The Giants traded a second-rounder last episode for Joey Bosa, so now they recoup in day 2 draft picks, adding a third. Arizona had multiple third-rounders going into the draft, so I don't think losing that pick is too big of a deal. The Cardinals are moving up 4 spots for cornerback Knox Hodgson out of Florida State. Hodgson is a playmaker, another guy who isn't the most consistent, but he won Florida State some games single-handedly last year. I'm surprised he only has 54 catching. We'll see if he'll be able to improve that with the Arizona Cardinals. That'll bring up Jalen Hurts' Carolina Panthers at 10, and they go with Oklahoma pass rusher LaDarian Mobley, who comes in as a 76 with hidden depth. The third pass rusher off the board here in the top 10. The defensive linemen are coming off quickly as Carolina gets somebody they can pair with Brian Burns on the edge. The Detroit Lions at 11 go with cornerback Raymar Coley Jr. out of LSU. Coley missed this entire season with an injury, but is still off the board here. The 4th corner picked in the top 11 picks. Plenty of cornerback talent in this year's draft, and they are flocking off the board early. Coley's only a 72 overall, but only 21 years old. Good size and athleticism with hidden depth. He's got a shot to be quite good. The Washington football team goes with Westlake offensive guard Lewis Palmer. They drafted a guard last year, ironically at number 12 overall, with Kingsley Gore, who's the starter at left guard. So now Lewis Palmer is going to be the starter at right guard. I think it's fair to say Washington's got their guard situation pretty good after using 2 top half of the first rounders on them in back-to-back drafts. The Giants go with the hometown Philadelphia kid, Adafa Klafawar, another pass rusher off the board. I think that's 4 defensive linemen now. Good selection for the Giants, who've done a really good job this offseason of adding pass rushing talent. Malik Arnold, wide receiver to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, of course, have A.J. Brown, but they kind of need a running mate for him, so that's going to be Malik Arnold. Not the fastest, but good route runner, good hands, good player. The Denver Broncos get Fred Blunt, safety out of Westlake here at number 15 overall, so he will pair up with another former Westlake safety in Florentino Phoenix. I think this could mean the end of Justin Simmons' time in Denver, unless like Blunt is going to play sub-linebacker or something, which is possible. There's plenty of talent on the board, including pass rusher Wilton Emerton. I said in the draft preview, if Wilton Emerton fell out of the top 15, I would consider a trade-up for him. So the Eagles might be on the phones. We may be trying to make a move here for Emerton as the Cleveland Browns go with Hennigan Patrice at number 16 overall. Talented left tackle. There are a lot of left tackles who are probably going to end up here in the later half of the first round as we get to one of the most interesting picks in the entire draft, the Indianapolis Colts, who have been rumored to liking quarterback Norman Collier, but instead they go with Wilton Emerton, the pass rusher out of Alabama. So the Emerton pipe dream is now pretty much over. He's a really, really good player, and the Colts have really done a good job of building up their pass rush. They drafted Demetric Gardner super high last year. They have Coleman Rasmussen. They have Kwity Paye, and now they add Wilton Emerton. Just because Indianapolis did not draft a quarterback here doesn't mean that Malachi Madison is still going to be their franchise guy, in my opinion. We talked about the idea of him possibly getting traded, and even though they didn't pick Norman Collier, I think that's more so because they did not expect Wilton Edmonton to still be on the board. The Colts have officially declined Madison's fifth-year option, so I feel like that might be the writing on the wall that he eventually does get traded, maybe today. I think a lot of teams might be interested. Washington could take a look at him. The Jets, I think, would make a lot of sense. The Lions, maybe not as much so, but Jakari Johnson is on the final year of his deal. The Packers, although Jordan Love has been pretty solid, maybe they want to upgrade. Same with Carolina. Jalen Hurts coming off a good year, but it's possible. The Rams, I don't think are as likely, but they're possible. The Titans as well. Richie Radkovinsky isn't too bad, but maybe they want an upgrade. The Vikings could make a lot of sense with Derek Carr and Teddy Bridgewater both getting older. Or maybe a mystery team comes in and swoops him up. We'll have to see. So now the Bengals are on the board here at 18. They go with wide receiver Nehemiah Serwick out of Texas Tech. 3 of the Bengals' last 5 first-rounders have been on wide receivers. Of course, Jabbar Chase in the 2021 draft, and then in 2023, they picked Westafawu Iwosu. Could this mean they're looking to trade Iwosu? Could this mean they're looking to trade Tyler Boyd? I'm not really sure what the Bengals' plan is, but I imagine they have one. Otherwise, that'd be pretty dumb. The Los Angeles Rams, with their second first-round pick, go with Joe D. Gentry out of North Carolina. The wide receivers are starting to fall off the board really quickly. Gentry, I think, might be the best day one receiver in this draft class. Great route runner, great hands. He's got a shot to be the number 1 receiver next year in LA. The receivers are flocking off the board like flies, as that brings up the Chargers at 20. Reports have said an anonymous team tried to move up here to 20 and offered multiple first-round picks in order to trade up for a wide receiver. The Chargers surprisingly said no. There's a player they are really targeting and willing to not get multiple first-round picks in order to select, and sure enough, that player ended up being a wide receiver, as the Chargers here at 20 would get Julito Atkins out of UCLA, who's going to be the Mike Williams replacement as a big-bodied red zone threat. Atkins stands at 6'5". So the last 3 selections off the board have been wide receivers. 4 have been taken within the last 7 picks, and the anonymous team I talked about earlier is going to move up here at 21. That team is the Kansas City Chiefs, who is going to be offering Green Bay pick 31, along with a first-rounder next year in order to move up here to 21. But that's not the only parts of the deal. Green Bay will also be sending a third-rounder next year to the Kansas City Chiefs, along with wide receiver Derek Watson. Watson is on the final year of his contract. He's not a starter here in Green Bay. He's currently wide receiver 4, so they have no need for him. The Kansas City Chiefs, on the other hand, do. They really only have 1 starting caliber receiver at the moment, that being Terry McLaurin. So now they add Derek Watson, who's probably going to play in the slot. Jake Browning was traded to Green Bay as well for cap purposes. So they have Derek Watson, Terry McLaurin, and now Theodore Williamson, who they select here at 21. Williamson was the player they wanted to move up for originally at pick 20 when the Chargers said no. Williamson is a burner, and the Chiefs love burners. They had Tyreek Hill for a while. He left. Then they had Jalen Waddle. He left to Atlanta, who selects offensive tackle Emi Duyo from Alabama. Speaking of Alabama players going to the Atlanta Falcons, Duyo is the second left tackle off the board. He is going to be a 74 overall with hidden development. He's going to be the Jake Matthews replacement, and they certainly hope he can have the career that Jake Matthews did as an 11-year starter. The 49ers at 23 get Josh Demerit, a nickel corner from Clemson. We talked about the possibility of him being our first-round pick. I think he would have been a good fit in our defense as somebody who really plays the nickel at a high level. But he ends up going a little bit earlier than expected to San Francisco. Demerit really rose up boards towards the end of the season after having a great redshirt senior season with the Tigers. So he ends up in San Francisco. Seattle, with their second first-round pick of the day, will go back to defense as they take linebacker Chauncey Burks out of Baylor. Pretty solid pick here for Seattle. Their defense is really starting to come together. They've used a ton of high draft picks on that side of the ball in recent years. Now it's just about getting the offense and figuring out the quarterback position. The Vikings at 25 go with Zachariah Westerschlott, the tackle out of Stanford. Only a 70 overall, but he does have hidden development. Despite losing Dalvin Cook, Minnesota's offense is still pretty good on paper, but they do need some help on the offensive line, so that's where Westerschlott comes in. The Bengals, with their second, first-round picks, go with Benji Anderson, a corner out of Southern Mississippi. So just like wide receiver, corner is really coming off the board quickly. I'm pretty sure we've now had 6 corners go here in the first round. Anderson is 74 overall, another nickel guy. As that brings up the New England Patriots here at 27, they're going to take linebacker Kenneth Barker out of Westlake. So another Westlake player off the board here going to New England. The Patriots really value talented players of a linebacker position. Barker's a big guy, 6'6", 247, really athletic, very good in the run game. Needs to improve a little bit in coverage. The Patriots like having their linebackers be able to cover. I think if he improves there, he's going to be a stud. Our rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, get cornerback Marion Smith-Gardner out of Westlake. This is a really good pick for the Dallas Cowboys, which does not make me overly pleased. Smith-Gardner is quite small. He's only 5'10", 164, but he's an ultra-talented corner with great ball skills. He's another player we would have highly considered with our 30th overall selection. So not only is he off the board to us, but he goes to a division rival, which kind of sucks. Only one team in front of us, it's the Baltimore Ravens, and they go with Frank Washington, the safety out of Westlake. Good pick here for the Ravens. He's probably not a player we would have considered because we're pretty much set at safety for a while with Edmund Orient and Joko Onwosu. But Washington's an ultra-talented player, and organizations like the Ravens stay good because they know how to draft well, as shown here. So that brings us up here with the 30th overall selection. There's a lot of options we can go with here with this pick. Plenty of talent along the offensive line. We could look at an offensive playmaker. We could look on the interior of the defensive line. Many different ways we could end up going with. We would get a few trade offers in the Trade Finder, and I don't think any of these offers are all that bad. But I don't want to make any of these trades, and there's a specific reason. Not that there's a player I really want, but we actually have a trade planned. This pick is on the move. It's not a small trade down where we're just moving back into the second round and getting a few other picks. This is a big move, a really big move. Maybe the biggest trade of the entire series so far. We are getting Malachi Madison from the Colts. Yeah, I know this comes as a little bit of a surprise, but it was actually a comment made towards the end of the season that sort of planted the seed in my head of the Malachi Madison trade, and it kind of hit me that why don't we make the move for Malachi Madison? So that's exactly what's going to happen. Xander Vanderwall is part of the deal. He is headed to the Indianapolis Colts, and I do feel bad for Xander Vanderwall. He's already been traded once in his career, and really throughout all of last season, I did view him as the franchise quarterback until the end of the season when this idea popped into my head. I wanted to see how the postseason went, and Vanderwall played quite well in the postseason, winning 2 playoff games for us, and he played damn well in both of those games. I genuinely believe Xander Vanderwall is a franchise-level quarterback, and the Indianapolis Colts are getting a great, great player. But the reason why I am willing to trade Xander Vanderwall here is because I think we are getting an upgrade. Statistically, Xander Vanderwall was a little bit better last year, and Vanderwall was probably better as a rookie too. So this is a massive risk for us because Vanderwall has proven a lot more in his NFL career than Malachi Madison. Madison has done nothing in his first 3 years as a Colt. He hasn't been a bad player, but he hasn't lived up to the number 1 pick expectations, which is why him and Indianapolis kind of needed a divorce, and we're going to be the team who gets him. Through Malachi Madison's 3 seasons, his numbers throughout his career are pretty much identical. He hasn't regressed, but he hasn't gotten all that much better. With the Colts declining his 5th-year option, again, that sort of felt like the nail on the coffin that he doesn't really have the future here. The Colts have tried to add talent on offense. They traded for Cooper Kupp a couple years ago. That didn't really work out. They added Mike Williams this year at the deadline, who they still have. They also have guys like Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. But it just didn't really work out with Malachi Madison with the Colts, and I think Xander Vanderwall is a better fit for their offense. So the official trade is Vanderwall along with the 30th pick and our second rounder next year for Malachi Madison and the 49th pick this year. I think that's a pretty fair trade. Madison's the more talented player, but Vanderwall's been better throughout his career. Vanderwall has won 3 playoff games. He won 1 as a rookie with the Steelers. He won 2 of his last year. Madison has never played in a playoff game. The Colts were close this year going 10-7 and just missing out because they were in a loaded AFC, but he's never accomplished anything in his 3 years as a pro. So why are the Eagles making this move? We believe that Malachi Madison is the piece that will put our team over the hump. I think Xander Vanderwall is talented enough to lead us to a Super Bowl, as shown by his performances last year in the playoffs. But I think there's a lot more upside with Malachi Madison going forward. He's got a rocket of an arm, 97 throw power, one of the strongest arms in the league. He's really accurate. He's got a very solid deep ball. He's really good in the intermediate game, which was Xander Vanderwall's weakness. And obviously the athleticism with Madison is off the charts. He's a great running quarterback. He's very good under pressure. One of Xander Vanderwall's big weaknesses was his ability under pressure when defensive linemen are in his face. As for Madison, that's one of his strengths, which is why that I think he'll be a better fit for our offense, along with all of the talent we have throughout the offensive side of the ball. It's not that the Colts' offensive talent was bad, but it's that ours is better, and I think our scheme will do him more justice. I think Madison's going to have more freedom to try to make big plays downfield. He's going to have more freedom to make big plays with his legs. And as I said, plenty of talent on offense. He's a great run game, great offensive line, and great receivers, including his former college teammate, Tykeem Keon. Both Madison and Keon played together at the University of Texas. They were both drafted in the same year, the 2022 draft. They had a great connection in college, and they are back together in the NFL. And both of them are impending free agents at the end of the year as well, for what it's worth. So assuming Madison and Keon are both really good, they're going to get a lot of money from us, most likely in the offseason. The Indianapolis Colts in the first pick of the Xander Vanderwall era go with running back Ravon Stewart, the top running back off the board. Jonathan Taylor's not getting any younger, so maybe they use Stewart as the long-term replacement after him. The Green Bay Packers moved down 10 spots with the Kansas City Chiefs, who moved up for Theodore Williamson, a wide receiver from Westlake. Green Bay, of course, now is Kansas City's first rounder next year as they get running back Smash Williams, another former Texas Longhorn. I don't really know why the Packers made this pick, because they don't need a running back at all. But Smash Williams will be headed up north to Lambeau. I thought the trade itself was good for Green Bay, but I thought they could have made better use of this draft pick. Only one more pick here in the first round. It's the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who go with offensive tackle Kennesaw Burke out of Maryland. Burke is going to be a 73 overall with normal development, but I think he's a starting caliber player. So I don't really have a major problem with this pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that's going to wrap up the first round. A pretty exciting round one, if I do say so myself. Seattle moves up for Bryson Barraclaw. Only two quarterbacks off the board. Drake Nelson at 2 to the Raiders. Crawford Shaw cross at 5 to the Saints. No Norman Collier ending up in the first round, but of course we did have another big move involving the quarterback position, with Malachi Madison being traded to our Philadelphia Eagles in a package that included the 30th overall pick and Xander Vanderwall. So now that we're in the second round, we're going to start to move a little bit quicker. We're not going to go over every pick in depth. We're just going to go over the relevant ones. Norman Collier highlights the talented players still on the board. A lot of offensive linemen left. I think the offensive linemen are going to drop off the board like flies. We have 2 picks in the second round. Pick 17 that we just got from the Colts, and our own pick at 30. So as we start things off, the Falcons get a linebacker, Desmond Clay. That'll bring up the Las Vegas Raiders. They go with guard Fred Campbell, a player we highly considered with our 30th overall pick. There's a decent shot he would have been the selection had we stayed at pick 30. So he ends up with the Raiders. Their offensive line was horrible last year. They need to get some protection for quarterback Drake Nelson. Deshaun McKinley, good value here to the Steelers. He was definitely supposed to go in round 1. And then the Jets go with Norman Collier, the quarterback out of Oklahoma. I like this pick. I think Norman Collier is going to be a good player in the NFL. He doesn't have a great deep ball, but the rest of his game is really solid. Zach Wilson hasn't really developed into a player that they had hoped for. They did extend Wilson, but it wasn't a long-term deal, so maybe Norman Collier will be the future QB of the Jets. Sterling Babineau goes to the New Orleans Saints. This is a pretty nice pick for them. His brother, Rashawn Babineau, was in the Jaguars series last year. I think Babineau last year was the 36th overall pick to the Jaguars, so he's going to always have bragging rights here over Sterling Babineau, who ends up as the 37th overall pick. I think this is a good selection here for New Orleans. Unlike Rashawn Babineau, Sterling has hidden dev. So that brings us to the Dolphins, but they're not going to stay on the board. They are moving down with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are trading the 49th pick that they just got from the Colts, along with pick 94. We're giving them our third rounder in exchange for this pick right here at 38, along with a couple of late round selections, 134 in the 5th round, 210 in the 7th round. So we're getting 3 picks for 2 pretty much and we're moving up. The Dolphins, on the other hand, are moving down. They're adding a third-round pick. I think this is pretty fair value. So we're on the clock. We're actually going to pick a player for the first time today. We now have 2 seconds, no third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and 2 sevenths. So an interesting slate of picks there as we're on the board here with the 38th overall selection. Plenty of talent on the offensive line. We could look at wide receiver. We could look at defensive tackle. Certainly a lot of choices here, but there's a player we've been really eyeing up, and we're going to make him the pick right here. We did not want to risk him falling any further. With the 38th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Zaire Savage, defensive tackle out of Cincinnati. Savage was always my top target. Had we never made the trade for Malachi Madison, he would have been the pick at 30, and he was always my top target all along over guys like Fred Campbell and Marion Smith-Gardner and Josh Demerit. Those 3 players all would have been good picks, but Zaire Savage was always the guy I wanted. He's going to come in as a hidden dev and will have an early opportunity to compete right away. Look at what he does here on the double team. He really knows how to make plays that don't affect the box score. He's actually triple teamed here, but he backs up the quarterback, leading to both defensive ends getting into the backfield. And when you leave him one-on-one, forget about it. It's over. We obviously have added plenty of talent to the interior defensive line this offseason, signing Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt. But Donald is 34 years old. J.J. Watt is 36 years old. So those guys are not long-term pieces, but they both will be here to mentor Zaire Savage. That's a pretty good situation for Savage. He's going to have arguably the 2 best interior defensive linemen ever mentoring him and helping him grow. I think Savage will still be on the field quite a bit as a rookie. He's certainly not going to be an every down player with adding Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt, but he's going to be the long-term defensive tackle, one of the future, and hopefully he can make an impact as a rookie. I think that's going to be a really good pick for us. So Zaire Savage out of Cincinnati is a Philadelphia Eagle, 38 overall as we continue moving forward. The LA Chargers pick a quarterback, Tyler Elliott, out of Texas Tech. This is a surprising pick here because they have Justin Herbert already on the roster. Elliott is a 77 overall. He's a beast. He has arguably the best arm talent in the draft. Good throw power, great accuracy. He's not great under pressure, but in a clean pocket, he is one of the best pure throwers to come out in the last 4 to 5 years. I don't know how he's going to see the field with Justin Herbert, but I really hope he plays because I think he's really, really good. Moving forward, the Carolina Panthers out of corner with Lorenzo Josephine III. The Buffalo Bills get the first tight end off the board. It's Omondo Odede out of Westlake. Odede was the #1 overall player in his recruiting class. He never lived up to that standard, but I think he is the athleticism and upside warranting a second-round pick. Tight end is a position we've mentioned as a possible need, so we've got to keep an eye now that he's off the board. The Washington football team gets running back Malik Bostic II. He is an 80 overall. Really, really good player. They do with Antonio Gibson already, but I guess Bostic's going to be the long-term running back for them, and I have a feeling he's going to be real, real good. So a really talented offensive playmaker added to our division. Not ideal. And then the Cardinals pick quarterback Keontae Shalaby II out of USC. So again, even though they have Kyler Murray, they are going QB, which is kind of a surprise. Shalaby reminds me a lot of Nico Cabanera. Questionable arm talent, but he is a human highlight film. Super athletic. I think he's going to be a fun player in the NFL. I just don't really know how they're going to use him with Kyler Murray. Moving forward now, the Titans get offensive tackle Nye Uthert. He was a possible first-rounder. Another really solid first-round tackle, Abraham Belkett Jr. from NC State. He was supposed to be long gone. He is still on the board. The Browns get wide receiver Tim Bonner-Sanders out of Kansas State. He's a 77 overall, only normal development. The Cleveland Browns have had a hard time adding receivers to the offense in the Russell Wilson era, so maybe he will be a nice addition. Moving forward now, the Dolphins add a wide receiver. The Texans go with defensive tackle and Trell Cleveland. The Bears, with their first pick of the day, get linebacker Andre Ritter. And Abraham Belkett Jr. is finally off the board here to the Chargers with the 20th pick in the second round. The Chargers have had a very interesting draft. They could have moved down from their first round pick and gotten a lot, and they didn't. They drafted a quarterback with their second pick, and now they add an offensive tackle who was supposed to probably go in the first round. The Madden mock drafts had him going to the Eagles at pick 30. Tryman Bird off the board of the Packers. He was our target with our next selection, a 75 overall with hidden development, a freak athlete tight end standing at 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan. He is unbelievable upside and is going to be a great pick for the Green Bay Packers. I'm a little bit disappointed he is off the board. The Jaguars go with a running back, James Wetzelberger out of Rutgers. The Steelers out of Westlake wide receiver and Brandon Rodriguez, giving them some more weaponry for quarterback Bjorn Syverson. Rodriguez is a very talented player coming in with hidden development. 6'3", 227, big-bodied guy. I think he's going to be what they thought Chase Claypool was supposed to be. Another Westlake player off the board, it's Dustin Tidwell going to the Minnesota Vikings. He is a 71 overall with hidden development, so they are looking to add some talent there to the linebacking core. We're coming up only a few picks away. Jacarl Henderson, that's a pretty good pick to the Bengals. The Patriots go with linebacker Chadrick Watson. Mac Mendoza out of Washington State goes to the Cowboys. And Jonathan Potts, wide receiver out of Alabama, to the Baltimore Ravens. So that brings us on the board here with the 30th pick in round 2, getting some offers from the Bills and Titans. Again, I think they're pretty good offers, but there's a player I really want here at this selection, and I'm a little bit concerned he's not going to fall much farther. So with the 62nd pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Machado Yamaguchi, tight end out of USC. I think everybody's been clamoring for a tight end for the longest time. So there you go, a tight end. Yamaguchi is a pretty interesting case because he did not play the entire season this year for USC with an injury. So he has not played football in over a year, but that's not going to scare us from picking him. Remember last year, Edmund Orient missed almost the entire season with an injury, and we still picked him in the first round. So we've shown that we're not scared of picking players coming off of big injuries, as shown with Edmund Orient last year, and now Machado Yamaguchi. Yamaguchi will likely be our number 1 tight end. We had Dozier Baxby start there last year, and he wasn't bad, but we can certainly upgrade. We really haven't had consistent play from the tight end position at all in this series. Before Dozier Baxby, we had Dallas Goedert, who is a really talented player, but we just never really truly acclimated him once he became the full-time starter after we traded away Zach Ertz. I think Yamaguchi, if healthy, will be able to be a legitimate weapon at the tight end position. So there's another weapon to the offense for quarterback Malachi Madison, who already has a loaded arsenal of skill position players, and now he gets another one. Good pick here by the Kansas City Chiefs as they get defensive tackle Ledger Olundanye out of UAB. Had we not picked Zaire Savage earlier, Olundanye would have been a player we heavily considered, and maybe he would have been the pick here had Savage been taken, and we would have had to go with another route with our top pick, and the Bucs finish off round 2 of a running back, Martin Berry. So a pretty exciting second round. We move up for defensive tackle Zaire Savage out of Cincinnati. He is a 76 overall. And then we add tight end Machado Yamaguchi. I think those are going to be 2 picks that people are going to be really happy about and eventually do really enjoy. Yamaguchi comes in as a 75 overall. So I think he is now our highest rated tight end on the roster. Here in the 3rd round, got some pretty talented players going off the board early as the Saints get the next best tight end, Chuck Fiore, who is a 79 overall, but with normal development. I still prefer Machado Yamaguchi because I prefer receiving tight ends over like straight inline blockers. Fiore's a great blocker, and he's a great player, as seen by a 79 overall, but I think Yamaguchi's a better fit. Derek Berg from Westlake, defensive tackle, going to the Dolphins. The Dolphins added Kamari Hunter, a pass rusher, with their 6th overall pick. Now they go back to the defensive line with Berg. Remember, we do not own a 3rd-round pick currently. That could always change because, again, I always like to dance up and down the board. But for now, we're going to do a lot of simulating. The Lions pick a quarterback, Brahim Yoder out of Washington. That's a pretty interesting selection. As I said earlier, Jakari Johnson is on the last year of his contract. As the Rams get Leonard Thomas, a linebacker out of Westlake, 6'3", 225 pounds. He's a young guy who I think maybe should have stayed in school another year. I think he could have really improved his stock. But he's off the board here to the young and developing LA Rams. Zyquel White from UCF. He's a guy I really like to the Broncos. He's probably going to play nickel corner for them. Mark King goes to the LA Chargers, a defensive tackle out of Westlake, who's a 75 overall with normal development. It's been a very mixed bag today for the Chargers. They've made some really good picks and some really bad picks, and there's been no in-between. The Chargers are back up. They go for another Westlake player, an offensive tackle, Steve Setzer, who's a 70 overall with hidden development. The Chargers are kind of retooling a little bit, so maybe they're really starting things over. Maybe they're going to look to trade Justin Herbert. Maybe that's their plan all along. Chris Gentry of a Washington football team, talented safety. And Atlanta goes with Joseph Muhammad, a linebacker out of Westlake, only 21 years old. Another guy who declared a little bit earlier than expected. That's a common theme of a lot of these late rounders from Westlake. All these guys were backups who probably should have stayed in school, but they decided to leave early for the draft. Rounding out the third round, Jalen Kozak to the Steelers. He's a player who I had mocked to the Eagles in the third round. Obviously, we don't have a third rounder anymore. A couple quarterbacks off the board. Jacob King goes to the Bengals. Lance Brooks, the lefty out of TCU, goes to the New England Patriots. And then rounding things out, only a few more picks to go. Frost is a good pick for the Dolphins. The Texans get a quarterback, and the Bucs go with center Jason Johnson. Seems like a Bucs pick to hit on a mid-round offensive lineman, and I think he will be a hit. So that wraps up the third round. Pretty quick round because, well, we did not own any picks. We do have 5 selections as of now on day 3, so we're going to be very active here on the third and final day of the draft as we start with round number 4. We have one fourth rounder, our own fourth rounder at pick 30, so we still have to wait a little while. Plenty of talented players still on the board. There's not any one player who I'm really eyeing up currently, so we'll see how the board plays out. And that's probably what we're going to do with our first fourth round selection. The Raiders get center Deion McCoy out of Westlake. Again, focusing on the offensive line. Get your young quarterback protection. The Raiders have gone all offense today. 2 offensive linemen, the quarterback with Drake Nelson. And in the third round, they got tall wide receiver Aaron Martinez. Moving forward now, some solid picks off the board. LaPierre, wide receiver to the Saints. A lot of wide receivers falling off the board. Super Supreme Burger Sr., the guard, goes to the Bills. Trey Hughes, good value pick to the New York Giants. Zane Watson's also pretty good value. He ends up with the Carolina Panthers. Antonio Brown is off the board. He is drafted by the Washington football team. A lot of safeties being picked as well. If you need depth at safety, go and get them now. Cordell Cleveland, a running back out of Ohio State, staying in Ohio. He is drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Coming up on our pick, only around 10 selections away, Ronald Harris, the second, was a player we were kind of eyeing up out of Charlotte. He goes to the Bears. Gabe Taylor to the Packers. That's a pretty good pick. Another safety. We're getting awfully close. Now only around 5 or so picks away as Seattle gets linebacker Alex Brown out of Westlake. This is another guy who was not a starter throughout his college career. It probably would have been a starter next year had he stayed in school, but he instead decided to leave early. We're getting very close to our selection. We're almost there. Another Westlake player off the board. It's Richard Smith, defensive tackle, going to the New England Patriots, adding some more beef in the middle of that defensive line. So now only 2 teams in front of us, Dallas and Baltimore. The Cowboys get Kenny Wetland, a defensive end. Baltimore gets Eddie Allen, the second, another defensive end. So we're on the board here with the 30th pick in the 4th round. It's only the Bills, Seahawks, and Titans who are interested in trading with us. Do the other teams not like us? I don't know why. So as we look on the board, certainly some talented players here. As we get later and later down the board, it's certainly more of a crapshoot, so we're really focused on just going with the best player available. So with the 30th pick, here in the 4th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Tayon Keon, wide receiver out of Texas. You guys can probably put 2 and 2 together here. This is the younger brother of one of our current wide receivers in Tykeem Keon. So Tykeem Keon's going to be pretty happy. We added his former college quarterback today in Malachi Madison, and now we add his younger brother. Tayon Keon is pretty much the dollar store version of his brother. Both of them are built pretty similarly physically, but Tayon Keon here just isn't quite as explosive as his older brother. But that doesn't mean he hasn't made some big plays throughout his Texas career. He had some lofty expectations entering college, and he was actually a higher-rated recruit coming out of high school than his older brother, Tykeem Keon. But Tykeem Keon developed a little bit more in college, and obviously he's been a great player for us so far in his first 3 years in the NFL. And we hope Tayon Keon can be pretty good as well. Hypothetically, if we were to let Tykeem Keon walk in the offseason next year, which I think is pretty unlikely, he's too good. But if we were to, Tayon Keon here could be his replacement, which is kind of ironic. Keon only has normal development, but he does have some good skills, including 92 speed. So now Tykeem Keon gets one of his best friends and his brother in the locker, and that's going to be pretty cool as we round out the 4th round with cornerback Leon Adams. White CBU gets another white corner drafted into the NFL as the Bucs go with the talented Leon Adams. So that wraps up the 4th round. We only had one 4th round pick. We stayed with that pick, and we go with Tykeem Keon's little brother, Tayon Keon, a wide receiver out of Texas, who's going to probably battle for the number 4 receiver spot with Troy Dobbs, who was pretty good last year. So I think Dobbs is probably wide receiver 4 this year. Keon could be next year. Now moving into the 5th round, we have 2 5th rounders, including one very early, and we are now on the clock. We got this pick from the Dolphins in the trade for us to go up and get Zaire Savage. Again, it's only the Bills, the Seahawks, and the Titans who want to do business with us. And again, we're going to say no because there's a player I kind of was intrigued by here who we're going to select. With the 6th pick in the 5th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select cornerback Cam Polk out of UCLA. We haven't really talked about Polk at all as a possible target for us, but he's 6'3", 4.53 speed isn't too bad, and he tested really well in the agility drills, finishing first in the 20-yard shuttle as well. So I think having a corner who's big like him, who's pretty fast, he's got great acceleration and is twitched up like him, there's a lot of upside. And on day 3 of the draft, when you're looking for corners, your best bet is going for someone with upside. Cam Polk only comes in with normal development, but I do think there is some upside here. CJ Thomas is a free agent at the end of the year, another former UCLA corner. As much as I want to pay Thomas, you got to keep in mind Tykeem Keon's a free agent at the end of the year. Malachi Madison's a free agent. Tyler Palumbo's a free agent. Zebediah Phoenix II is a free agent. We've got a lot of guys we have to pay this offseason. And although we have one of the highest cap amounts in the league, we're still not going to be able to pay everybody. So if we do let CJ Thomas walk, Cam Polk, who was mentored by C.J. Thomas in college and I guess will be in the NFL, he could be C.J. Thomas's replacement just like at UCLA. Interesting pick here by the Titans. They go with Roderick Anderson, the 6'7" safety out of Westlake. I don't know if he's going to play safety or sub-linebacker or what. I kind of wish he stayed in school and could have been a full-time starter at safety, but he's going to be an intriguing player. I'm excited to see how the Tennessee Titans end up using him. I think I said earlier we have 2 5th-round picks. I was wrong about that. We only had the 1 5th-rounder, which was Cam Polk, but we do pick very early in the 6th round. We had the 3rd pick in the 6th round from Seattle in a trade we made last year at the deadline in which we swapped Jeremiah Nabuke and Apelu Tuiai-Sissoko. Moving through the 5th round, not a whole ton of notable picks. The Colts pick a quarterback, Jeremy Lynch. I guess he'll be Xander Vanderwall's backup in Indianapolis. And speaking of the Colts, they go with Malcolm DeGray, the first Metropolis player off the board. We've got 4 Metropolis players in this class. Linebackers, Malcolm DeGray and Ford Chavez. And then our 2 safeties, Tavion Lewis and Ryan Jovanovic, all of whom are projected to go off the board in this range. Moving forward now, Victor Fuentes to the Packers. And the Chargers make a really interesting pick with Australian rugby player Diallo Cooper, who they hope can play running back. He's a 78 overall with hidden dev. Now, I don't think he's as good as his rating suggests. He has a lot of high power ratings. He's still quite raw, but I actually like this fit for him because they have Austin Eckler already, who's more of your one-cut receiving back, so I think that'll actually be a nice pairing. I think that's about as good of a fit as you could have asked for with Diallo Cooper. Moving forward, the Vikings get a quarterback with Trey Curry. Maybe he can develop and be the guy after Derek Carr. Ryan Jovanovic, another Metropolis player, is off the board. Unfortunately, he is headed to Dallas, which doesn't please me. The Cowboys have really improved the secondary today with Marion Smith-Gardner earlier, and now Ryan Jovanovic. So they add a Westlake player and a Metropolis player in the secondary. Rounding out the 5th round, the Ravens add an offensive tackle, and the Bills get Tavion Lewis. This was originally our 5th round pick. I'm not entirely sure which move this was. I think it was the deal that we moved up last year to get JT DeMarco. I think that's how they got that pick. Tavion Lewis comes in with hidden development, really talented player. Hopefully he succeeds with the Bills. So that wraps up the 5th round. We add defensive back Cam Polk with our first pick. He's officially a 69 overall. And then we've got some Metropolis players coming off the board. Malcolm DeGray is in Indianapolis. Ryan Jovanovic is in Dallas. And Tavion Lewis is in Buffalo. Ford Chavez, the linebacker, is the only one still on the board. As we're about to come up here, the Raiders at a cornerback, Boulware out of Minnesota. So we're on the board here with the 3rd pick in the 6th round. Again, it's only the Bills, the Seahawks, and the Titans offering us trades. We are going to say no because there's a player I really want here with this selection. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to end up picking that player. With the 3rd pick in the 6th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles will be selecting Metropolis' finest linebacker, Ford Chavez. I really wanted to add another Metropolis player. He's the only one left on the board. And of the 4 Metropolis players in this draft class, at least in college, of the 4, Ford Chavez was the best. So if I were to pick one, maybe it wouldn't be Chavez because I don't think he's going to be as good in the pros as those other 3. But in college, he was great. He's been a 2-time captain as a junior and a senior, and he was arguably the best player on our defense 2 years in a row. This is a do-it-all linebacker who can line up in coverage, he can get interceptions, he can make plays as a pass rusher, he can make plays in the run game. I compare him to a less athletic, lower ceiling version of Winston Johnson, who he drafted a few years ago in the 5th round. Winston Johnson is also on the final year of his contract. There's another guy we're going to have to pay. Again, we can't pay everybody. If we were to let Winston Johnson walk, I think Ford Chavez could take his role and do it to 75% of what Winston Johnson brings. So I think this is a solid selection as he comes in with hidden development. Welcome to the team, Ford Chavez, reuniting him with his former college teammate, Malachi Diggins. We don't pick again in the 6th round, but we do have 2 selections in the 7th round, which will most likely be our final 2 picks of the day unless we were to make some moves up or down or trade out of those picks entirely. There aren't as many notable selections here in the 6th round, so we're really starting to move a whole lot faster here towards the second half of the 6th round. That guy's name is Legend. He goes to the Cardinals. Titans pick a quarterback with Devin Wade out of Texas. That's who is throwing the ball to Tayon Keon this year at the Longhorns, is the Chargers with another notable pick in linebacker Jesse Riley. Not a whole lot of Westlake players left on the board. I'm pretty sure there's only one left now, which is fullback, what's his name? Henry Hudson. So Hudson's the only Westlake player left available as we continue to simulate forward. Not many other notable selections here in the 6th round because, again, it's round 6. You're not really going to find a whole lot. Tom Brady was picked in the 6th round, 199 overall, but players like Tom Brady don't really grow on trees. Final few picks of round number 6. The Patriots add a pass rusher, Vianney Vernon from Florida. Dallas adds the man, the myth, the legend, Andrew Andrews out of Iowa. He's a wide receiver. So Andrew Andrews is now in our division. Oh dear, what is he going to be? Final pick of the 6th round is running back Terrell Crawford out of Mississippi Valley State. The greatest player in NFL history came out of Mississippi Valley State. And so did Jerry Rice. You're an OG if you understand the reference. So that wraps up the 6th round. We had one 6th rounder, which was Metropolis linebacker Ford Chavez. No more Metropolis players left on the board. Again, only one Westlake player, but we still have 2 more picks in which we'll be able to make some noise here in round number 7, including one coming up soon with the 7th overall pick in the 7th round from Buffalo. I think this pick was also in the JT DeMarco trade up last year. So we are now on the board, and at this point in the draft, most of these guys we haven't really scouted a whole lot, so we're really just looking for flyers. A spot we have not gone to yet today is on the offensive line, so that's what we're going to do here. With the 7th pick in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Georgios Palakistri. He is a guard out of Purdue. One of his top fits is Uz, so there you go. Palakistri will be the selection. He's not overly special, but we needed depth on the offensive line, so he'll be a nice addition to the team. We've got a position battle at guard going into the season. Cesar Ruiz, who we got from the Saints, will be one of our starters, and we've got to figure out who's going to start at left guard, replacing Landon Dickerson. Most likely, that will be either Fletcher Luce or Marcus Crum, but if both of them struggle throughout camp and the preseason, I'm not opposed to giving Georgios Palakistri a try at left guard. I think it's unlikely he'll be a starter for us. I think it's really unlikely he'll ever be a starter. I just don't think he's talented enough, but if he develops, you never know. He's been a solid 3-year starter with the Boilermakers at Purdue, where he's shown a solid improvement each and every year of his college career, so maybe we're underestimating him a little bit. Maybe he will turn into something here in the NFL. So Georgios Palakistri is the selection. Remember, we still own another 7th rounder, the 18th pick of a round via the Cincinnati Bengals. I have no clue what trade that could be from, as Henry Hudson is off the board, the final Westlake player drafted. This is the last batch of Westlake players entering the series, so I guess by default, Henry Hudson will be the final Westlake player drafted ever, pretty much. So that's going to be a trivia question you might need to remember one day. Now, really the only thing we have to look forward to is our selection here, 18th overall in the 7th round. Landon Groves was supposed to be picked way earlier. He goes right in front of us to the Colts. So again, I'm really just looking for flyers. We're getting offered some future 7th round picks, but there was a guy who I wanted to take a shot on who I think is worth a draftable selection. With the 18th pick in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles select Teddy Forbes, a wide receiver out of Florida State. He's big and he's fast. That's really what we're basing this pick on. Forbes is going to come in, unfortunately, with only normal development, but I think he could be an interesting player. 6'5", 235. He ran a 4.45 at the combine. So he's a height, weight, speed guy. He's big, he's strong, and he's fast. He was very inconsistent throughout his career with Florida State. He was a pretty highly rated recruit, but never really lived up to the hype. never garnering over 1,000 yards in a season. But he's an NFL-level athlete, and that's really why we're making the selection with him here. He's not a great route runner. He's not a great separator, and his hands are a little bit inconsistent, although his hands were a lot better this year as a senior. So I think really the only question marks with him is his route running and his separation ability, both of which can be taught. You know what can't be taught? 6'5", 235, 4.45 40. So I think there's certainly some potential with Forbes. He's got a long way to go. I'm not sure if he's going to make the roster, but there's no upside with him. So I'm curious to see if he ever develops into anything as we round out the 7th round. Only about 10 more picks left to go in the draft. There isn't really anybody notable who's left on the board, so we're not really going to talk about any more selections in depth. Bill O'Brien was just picked by New England. That's kind of ironic. Only a few more picks to go, and there you go. The 2025 NFL Draft is now in the books. Georgios Palakistri comes in as a 65 overall. Teddy Forbes is a 63, so neither of them are rated overly highly. Mr. Irrelevant ended up being wide receiver JT Samuel out of Miami. So there's our draft class. I think we did a really good job. I'm going to go through everybody's ratings because we didn't really get a good look at them earlier. Zaire Savage and Machado Yamaguchi are both going to play big roles as rookies. And we've got some interesting other young guys on day 3. Tayon Keon, the wide receiver out of Texas. Cam Polk out of UCLA. Both guys could be starters down the line depending on how we use our money going forward. Ford Chavez as well could be a guy who's eventually a starter, the former Metropolis Bulldog. And then in the 7th round, taking some flyers with Georgios Palakistri and Teddy Forbes, both of whom will have to battle for roster spots in the preseason. And obviously the biggest move today was not even a draft pick. It was us trading Xander Vanderwall, the 30th pick, and a future 2 to the Colts for Malachi Madison and their 2nd round pick. Malachi Madison is our franchise quarterback. He's on the last year of his deal. Assuming he plays well, which I'm very confident he will, he's going to get a big extension in the offseason. As we look at our schedule, we start the year against Drake Nelson of the Raiders, so Nelson will make his NFL debut against us. This is not the first time we are playing against a highly drafted quarterback making his debut. 3 years ago, we played against the Colts when Malachi Madison made his NFL debut, and now in that game, Madison makes his Eagle debut. It all comes full circle. 5 of our first 7 games are prime time. We only have 1 more after our Week 8 bye week. That's an NFC Championship rematch against the Bucs on Monday Night Football. Most of our division games are late in the season, and then we finish off on the road against the LA Chargers. So that's going to wrap up the draft episode. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Next episode, we're going to start Season 5, the Philadelphia Eagle debut of Malachi Madison as he faces off against the number 2 overall draft pick, Drake Nelson, and the Las Vegas Raiders. Hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Make sure to like button and subscribe if you're new. Let me know what you thought about all of our moves down below in the comments. And for everyone who came in through the live premiere, I appreciate you guys all showing up. Peace out. Go Birds.